What's up, dudes? How's everybody doing? Oops, I forgot to get my cup of tea. Just 1 second. Let me grab it. How is everybody? I'm in Copenhagen. Yeah, I'm just going to boil the kettle again. It's going to be tea tonight because it's night. It's not day. Yeah, I'm in Copenhagen. I had a nice day. Nice day off. Epic day of travel yesterday. What did I do? I came all the way from Finland. Turku, Finland. I hope I'm saying that right. All the way to Stockholm on a ferry. It's about 10 hours or 9 hours, 10, 11 hours, something like that. Something like that. I don't know. We lost an hour and I lost track of time. And then you get on the bus after that. Our bus, it's an amazing ferry, man. I mean, I'll show you. Let me show you a picture or two off of this. To call it a boat was selling it short. Just incredible. Multiple different like restaurants and bars and places to hang out and stuff. Just really amazing. The scenery was beautiful. I took that off the boat last night. It was gorgeous. And you're just kind of sailing through fjords, and that was like from sitting there on the boat in one of the restaurants waiting for my dinner to show up. It was gorgeous, man. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Let me find some more photos from during the day. That's like one of the, you can't really tell, but what that looks like. It's terrible, but that's like out on the deck. It was cold as hell out there. Sailing. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. So anyways, now we're in Copenhagen. So epic week of snow in Toronto, says Peter. Is that right? Lots of snow on the East Coast. I'm so kind of tuned out. I'm just over here. What did I have for food today? I had sushi for lunch, actually. It was really good. I went to sort of in the middle of the town. There's like a food hall with like multiple different restaurants and stuff. And there was a pretty legit looking Mexican place. And I was thinking about doing tacos. And then there was sushi. And I thought, I haven't done that in weeks. So really, really good, actually. It was great. And tonight I'm going to a place that is, I got on TripAdvisor and looked around, found a super high rated restaurant. So I made a reservation because Denmark for food is like extremely good. Okay, I'm going to pour in my cup of tea and get that going right now. There we go. So I got a hot beverage. Hot beverages are always necessary for live streams, right? Just what you got to do. Sorry I couldn't do this yesterday, but yeah, there was just really no way to do it. Although I went live for a second, but I was literally sitting in the coat closet on the bus. There was no quiet place and no reliable place to do it yesterday. It just wasn't going to happen. So it was an all-day affair. So on buses and planes, trains, and automobiles. So we do this instead today, and I keep it going how I can. What are you playing in Copenhagen? Well, I'm doing Classic Rock Show, which is the band I play with over here in Europe every January, February, generally. So we've got a gig in Copenhagen, and we've got some in the Netherlands, one in Germany, one in Ireland. Most of these places is the first time we've been there. It's really cool that we're going. We do one in Luxembourg, and then I go home. So about another, I don't know, probably like 9 shows or something like that over the next 2 weeks. And about 2 more weeks left in the tour. Good times. Do you know how the Thornbuckers compare to the Ibanez Super 58? The only Ibanez pickups that I tried were the ones that were in that shootout in the little like Eddie Van Halen pickup shoot. Not little, I guess big Eddie Van Halen pickup shootout that I did. And I want to say, I think that's too hot to drink. I want to say it was one of my least favorite, actually, but I'm not convinced it was indicative or that's what I'm looking for, representative of your typical Super 58 or whatever, or Super 70, or you're asking about a Super 58. The Super 70 was the ones that came in the Destroyer, I think. But yeah, so no, I don't really know. I mean, it was really low output and just didn't sound that great, the one that we had. But it was a Super 70, I think, the one that we had to test in that video. Yeah. Todd says, it looked like you were in the back of a moving horse and buggy. Yeah, I just found a quiet place in the closet upstairs where all the bags go that go on the bus. Just on a bus is generally, you got the hold for like the big bags, and then you've got like little luggage areas to stick backpacks and things like that. And when you got 15 or 16 people on a bus, like we do on this tour, then those get crammed pretty full. So I was literally sitting amongst a bunch of backpacks yesterday. So that wasn't going to work. But hey, David, thanks for that super chat. I'm sorry I don't have a great answer about that. So just not sure. I've tried old Ibanez that, like back in the day. My friend Keith had a Ibanez. What the heck were they called? I don't remember, but it was kind of the Schofield model. It looked like a 335. It's always sounded pretty good, but I have no reference because it was like 35 years ago that I heard that guitar. So I don't really remember what it sounded like. Cool guitar though. Cheers. So pumped about the Satchvite tour. Hope for some US dates. We will see. I don't know. Yeah. What do you play when you're just hanging out at home? I just have a couple guitars around the house. I took a Taylor home, actually, an acoustic that I have, a small body acoustic. That's kind of a nice guitar. It's a sort of a short scale, small body, real compact, nice to sit on the couch with. So I have that. And then I'll bring guitars home, if I'm practicing for something specific for a gig or something. I'll bring a guitar to the house and stuff so that I can wake up in the morning and have coffee and play at home a bit and stuff. I haven't done that for a long time, though. I do most of my playing at my studio. I aim to change that, to maybe set up a little, something at home where it's a little more, especially, now that I've got these gigs coming up, I'm really going to play a lot of guitar, get into getting ready for just, keeping my hands in super duper shape and stuff like that and learning things and stuff. So yeah. Oh man. Anyways, what else? Are you using the same setup as last year? So almost. I've got a couple PT100s out on the road right now that are just a little different than what I had last year. Just a couple values and things that are changed. It's actually probably closer to a perfectly stock PT100, but I'm always playing around with things. So it's actually probably closer than what I used last year, which was a little more aggressive. And now I've got one that's a little bit less aggressive and a little more like, so for the lower gain or mid gain kind of martially tones, stuff that would have been done more on plexis and things like that. I was aiming to get a little bit more of that sort of thing going. And actually, I'm very happy with the guitar sounds this year. And James has a great guitar sound this year. His amp sounds terrific, and his cabinet is magnificent. So he's got an old 68 cab with original. He's nuts. He brings it on the road, but it's like a great, A cab from 68 with greenbacks in it. That sounds killer. So he's not afraid to rock that stuff every night on the road. So went to a Bryan Adams concert the other night. Good to see Keith Scott on stage with him, still playing guitar. Really good show. Yeah, Brian's top shelf still. He really keeps it on a high level. I make all kinds of food for the freezer: pizza, mini ravioli, burritos. That's fantastic. My knees hurt. You guys are talking amongst yourself, I see. Love you, Canadian rockers like Phil X, Alex Lifes, and Triumph. Speaking as someone that, still seems like playing great, doing great, the whole nine yards. I saw a video a little while ago of Rick Emmett playing. Maybe you guys have seen it. It's probably 2 years ago now or something, but he's like playing in his basement. There's a whole bunch of beer bottles on the wall behind him that he's collected. Great video. And he's showing how he plays some classic riffs, I think, as I remember in the video. I've always wanted to meet him. He seems like a great guy, like a terrific guy. Maybe that'll happen one of these days. Have you ever had a guitar with Sir V70s? I haven't, no. They are spectacular for that airy strat tone. Cool. Yeah, they're a little more low wind. I think they're like 5 point something K. A little more like almost like 50s or 70s pickups, like a little more low wind. And of course, the more that you do that, the more glassy you can get. So for sure. What headphones do you recommend for Sir Reactive Load IR? A cheaper pair and a mid-range pair would be great. So I bought these headphones, or I got them a little while ago, and I always forget what they're called, but maybe somebody else out there in the chat, because this has come up a number of times, will remember. C70s or something, and they're the company starts with an S, and it was a brand that no, it's not very good information. But anyways, they sort of broke. The headphones sound great, but the and I think this is kind of a common problem with them, is the plastic sort of on them wasn't the best. Just realizing, like, I've got super duper dry hands right now, and I wanted to just see if I could find my super duper hand cream to put some on so that I don't get cracks and stuff like that. But I still got to play for 2 weeks out here. Man, it's something you guys know, in winter climates, it's just like, I'm sure you get like the splitting fingers and stuff like that if you're trying to, your hands dry out and then you're up the creek. It's like a whole nother problem that if you're in a warmer, wetter climate, I guess you don't have the issues with. But I just dry out in the winter time, in winter climate. So it doesn't happen in California, even though it's really dry. But when I come over here, it's brutal on my hands. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. We were talking about headphones. Let me see. So I got a while ago a pair of, because those ones kind of broke on me, the ones that I was just talking about. And so maybe somebody in the chat, because we've talked about this before a number of times on here. Maybe somebody will know what they're called. But I bought them. They're about 60, 70 bucks off Amazon or something. They do sound really good. C70, something I think they're called, or C1. I sound like an idiot, but because I am an idiot. But so I have a pair of the Sterling headphones from Guitar Center. It's their brand that they sent me. And I pulled those out. And I really quite like those, actually. So I've been using those. Now, I also have some Audio Technica high level. I could probably find the name of them. Let me find the Audio Technica I have. Audio Technica headphones. That'll be easy to find. Maybe the headphones I have are CB1s or something. Okay, so the M50X. I've had a pair of those. Those are pretty cool. Those are a studio standard, good sort of rockin' loud headphones. But the DT ones are more the ones that I'm talking about, that I've got, that are kind of super high quality. I'm just gonna try and find the number here so that I can. They've probably got all different kinds now, though, is the only thing. So bear with me. Just bear with me for a second here. Oh, yeah. So I have some of these open air ones. I'm looking on their website, and they're called the ATH ADX 3000, I think, and they're like $1,000. I have a pair of those. So those are super high end. Really, really nice. Not really for studio recording, because they've got open backs on them, which I always thought, why would you want that? But then I tried them, and I'm like, oh, these are really nice, like for listening. They just have this air to them that's beautiful. They sound less boxy or something than most headphones, and they're just really cool sounding. So check out those, the open back ones, if you're just talking about kind of audiophile stuff. But for studio headphones, let me see here. Shop studio headphones. What are those? I'm not sure what my open back pair are, to tell you the honest truth, but I think it was the ones that I just said. M50X, I have a pair. They're good basic. If Sony 7506s were always kind of a standard of mine that I used for a long time. They're very definitely kind of clear hyped in the high end, I think. But you'll see them in studios, and the ones you would always see in studios are those, and then the Audio Technica, the M50s, I think they're called, the M50X now they're called. But they have a not a similar thing, really. The Audio Technicas are more like, I don't know, like bassy, punchy, and less hyped top end, I would say, than the ATs. But anyway, I just like Audio Technica stuff, so you could check those out and see what you think. You know, they make really good stuff. I kind of quit using the Sonys, the 7506s, because they sounded too processed to me, but I did use them for a long time in the studio, and I know what they sound, kind of like people know what NS10 sound like. I knew what they sounded like and what I was, supposed to be getting out of them. So, and then for cheaper, I like the Sterling stuff, actually, which was the Guitar Center brand. I really quite liked them. I thought they sounded good. I've heard good things about the blue headphones. Those are supposed to be pretty cool. So there's some really haphazard recommendations. Thanks for the show in Helsinki a few days ago. I bugged you with tone questions at the meet and greet. One more, your tech switch, the PT100 clean crunch on a few songs. Yes, you're very astute, actually. He does do that. There was a few songs where I've just got too much going on, like in between tunes. And I asked him, like, could you go back and just change the control? So, like, I've got a couple different settings on my clean channel, one with the crunch switch in, one with the crunch switch out that I like for different songs. Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. He was turning on and off the crunch switch, which just adds a layer of gain, really, to the clean channel. And then when you do that, it gets a fair amount louder. So then I'll back the master down a hair, so that it kind of evens out the volume. This is the first time I've actually used the crunch switch on the PT100 like this much on tour. I'm actually using it like on a lot of songs. Because you can kind of almost get like a, cranked up basement or like a high watt almost getting into sort of tone. It's not a high watt circuit, but it's way more Fendery, but there's something in common there, I think. So I'll use it on, like, for instance, like when we play The Who and stuff, I'll turn on to get a little bit extra balls out of it. And, yeah. So there you have that. Do you have any more of the skinny on the the SL15? I just placed a pre-order. Wondering if the output section is similar to PT15. Yes, it is. Yeah, very similar. Yeah, and same size chassis, I think, and same size head shell and stuff. So there's similarities across it. There's some crossover there, so that probably helps in some ways, I would think. Build. Yeah. Do you ever have to deal with hand pain? About turn 60, my wrists and thumb joints are bothering me more and more. Go to a doc that specializes in things like rheumatoid arthritis, and also get your thyroid checked out. I had issues with my hands that were largely resolved because I've got a thyroid thing. And once I started taking medication for that, it seemed to really help. So just some things to think about. When you go get a blood test done, like let's say for a physical, they generally don't test you for thyroid stuff. So, it's something that just to be aware of. You could say, hey, can you test my thyroid levels? Because there's probably a lot of folks out there with all kinds of issues, I think, where they don't catch it, and maybe you've got an underactive thyroid, and, it can pop out of like 1 year you can be fine. And then the next year it's like, oh yeah, thyroid's out of whack now. It's like, really? Because that's what happened to me. I had it tested at one point, and then I had it tested again a couple of years later, and it was wacky. And the doc was like, yeah, that's what happens sometimes, So I was like, okay. And so that's just something to think about. But, yeah, barring that, I always recommend going to a good sports medicine sort of therapist. If none of that, if they rule out everything else. But sometimes, yeah. So, yeah, there was the headphones, the CB1, Status Audio CB1, unfortunately no longer made. They were nice. Just they were a little unreliable when it came to the build, as things can be sometimes when they come from overseas. So it was just like they were a little like, weak, the plastic, and it kind of broke on me. They still work, but I kind of got to jerry rig them to get them on. Yeah, so that's a little bit of an issue. But all right, what else we got here? Some super chats there. I just got the Wilkinson locked saddles on my Sur, but having tuning issues. Do you have any tips I may be missing? Make sure that you have to be very careful. Here's two things I'll recommend. The Allen screws that lock down in the saddles. Get yourself a wrench that is like that's like a screwdriver style wrench, not the angled key, right? Angled Allen key. I find they can be made out of kind of metal that's not so great, and they can kind of start to strip in the holes sometimes and stuff. But get yourself a driver that's the exact right size, that looks like a screwdriver. You can find them on Amazon and stuff. But that pressure tightening the screw is better. I just found, like, it's a more precision thing. They seem to fit the screw better. And you really do want to lock down that screw fairly tightly. Don't go crazy and strip it. But if it's a little loose on the E string, the A string, or the D string, not so much the plain strings, you don't have to go crazy on those, but on the wound strings, I find if it's a little loose, the tuning stability isn't as good. So you got to get a good positive, like, yeah, that's tight all the way. Like, don't go crazy and go further, but just make sure that there's no play. You get a feel for it after a while. So barring that, if you're still having issues, there's probably a nut thing going on. So you want to have your nut looked at and maybe just clean it out with a little bit of, like have a really good tech or something look at the nut and make sure that the saddles are really, really, well cut and stuff like that. That should be helpful. Yeah. Because it's binding somewhere, right? If it's locked in the bridge and it's tight there, then the issue has to be nut, because it's the only other place where there's contact being made with the string. So kind of process of elimination. Yeah. Yeah, there's somebody else in status. Our CB1 no longer available. Not for some time. Bear Dynamic. Oh yeah, I have a pair of Bears too. They are really good. The DT 1990. They're really good. I've got a lot of headphones around, and I those are the ones I have, I think, and they're very nice. But they're about, are they $500 or something like that? They're not inexpensive, but good stuff. Here's a blast from the past. Nobody ever gives the Killer Dwarfs any love. They were a great Canadian band. They really were. I think that they just had their name probably hindered them because of the kitschy, it's just like, it seems like they were really good though. They played good. I remember, and I liked their tunes and stuff. They were pretty cool. Helix had some good songs too. They were a good Canadian hard rock band. Man, lots of bands, man. Remember the band called Haywire? They were more like in the kind of Honeyman Suite vein. Actually saw them both play together once on tour. That guitar player was amazing, man. The guy in Haywire, he was like so cool. His tones and his feel and his solos were like epically cool, like super great rock phrasing, kind of in a almost like, well, kind of like Derry from Honeyman Suite. Like he had that too. Just ripping like really great, cool solos. But then sort of like I was thinking Warren D. Martini, like a little bit, like he had a little bit of that swagger in his solos. The way he would like, phrase was similar to me or something. Just really cool. A little, some Van Halen going on too. But yeah. And somebody's giving Paul Dean props. So of course, Paul Dean, kind of a I would say maybe underrated a little bit. Like, the guitar in Turn Me Loose is badass. Right? It's so cool. It's like great tone. I think it was a high watt. It was one of those Canadian modded high watts. I could be wrong about that, but I think so. It had the gain mod in it, and it was such a good sound on that record. What a great tone. I mean, it's like really, really great rock tone on that song. And the licks and stuff were cool too, like cool phrasing. And there were some great players from Canada, man, back then. It was good times, really good times. I miss all of that. I miss those times. I miss the music, but I also just miss the times. It was such a, I don't know, it was just a different time in the world. I just miss it these days more than ever. Sonic Blue, 1922. Found a used Friedman twin sister combo. Redback sounds good. Thoughts on that speaker? It's cool. It's a real like it'll handle a lot of power, 150 watts, I think. What's my thoughts on it? It's a little dark, but that's common with speakers that are that high power. Relatively. So, but a good sounding speaker, what else are you going to use? I mean, I think I probably prefer the, cause it's great, dark with distortion is always nice and stuff. And it kind of has a pleasant sound and stuff, but I would be worried that my only worry is that clean, it would be a bit of like not enough sparkle for me, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't like, put it to the test in like a, with like a PT15 or something like that. So I'd have to try it to see, but it's part of what I really like about to be honest, about the Creamback 75, because it's still a 75 watt speaker. It'll work with a lot of amplifiers. and it's got a great sound, clean to dirty, and it's got a nice open top end with plenty of, for a high power speaker, it's got plenty of, because it's a bigger magnet and all that. So it has, just a little bit more of a balanced, maybe the red back for some people, but you have to try them both back to back and see what you think, Red back is going to be a little warmer, a little more greenbacky, I think. And the creamback H75 going to be a little bit more big bottom, top end, the whole thing, like a little more full range, That's just my layman view. What else we got here? Let's see, just looking through the chat. You guys are talking about some hand issues and stuff. Yeah, always good to get it looked at, and like I say, a sports medicine kind of person is where it's at for if you've got no physical like I say, like thyroid things or rheumatoid arthritis or things that can identify like that, then a good sports medicine doctor that helps out athletes and things are the one to go talk to about any of this kind of stuff. Yeah. What else we got here? Somebody else recommending the Bear headphones. Platinum Blonde. They were cool. They were kind of like the Canadian, I don't know, like Duran Duran or something, but a little more rock. But cool. They were just so pop too, I wasn't as into them, but cool. Killer Dwarf's name had big Anvil energy. Yeah. I mean, both, Anvil got kind of, man, the Anvil movie's great. If you guys haven't seen it, that was a long time ago. That came out now, but it's 15 years ago or something, but it was great. I know it's hard to believe, right? That would be 15 years ago, but I remember because we played with those guys right after I'd seen the movie. I was playing with Chris Cornell at the Download Festival in the UK, and I have a picture with those guys with, Lips and all those dudes from Anvil and our whole band. And that's how long ago it was. It was 2009. So this is bonkers, right? But great movie. Welcome to Denmark. Thank you. I love Denmark. What a great place. About to go have an incredible meal in about, half an hour. I'm going to head out and do that. Yeah. Ben says, yep, modded high watt on Turn Me Loose. Yeah. Neil Sean used to use one of those too. I don't know if it was the Canadian version or if it just had a mod that was a different mod, but he had one, and I asked him once what he was using on. There's a live video from 80 or 81, and they're playing Stone in Love. He's playing his Black Les Paul on it, and maybe the video I'm talking about. I asked him, what is the tone on this video? I sent him the video, and he told me it was just modded high watt. I was like, man, that's a great guitar sound. Just cool. What else we got here? Let's see. Moving down through the chat. What do you listen to that's outside the rock world? Any more international music genres? Outside the guitar rock world, I mean, to be honest, I quite like a lot of I went through like a whole electronic music phase back when that stuff started, like Morcheeba and Air and Massive Attack and like 07 and like chill out music and stuff. I just really enjoyed it because it was like so not guitar frequency. There wasn't that mid range going on all the time, and it was like I kind of got into that for a while. So I still like that stuff, I love Air. Love that band. This is good stuff. I wore out like Moon Safari and good stuff, really good stuff. And I loved, in that similar, like that would be more, I was listening to that in the early 2000s, but in the late 90s, I was really into like the Verve and, that kind of stuff. Not really into like, rock. So yeah, I was doing that. And then I had a whole like kind of like era of discovering Joni Mitchell and Neil Young and stuff. And I was like, oh, they're all Canadians. I'm into all these Canadian legendary singer-songwriters all of a sudden. So that happened too. But I started out with the Beatles, so it was like I was always kind of into, other like I had one, when people were playing me music when I was young, my sister was pulling me one way, and this other guy was pulling me another way, like playing me music when I was a kid. As I was learning and hearing things. So I had sort of one element playing me Thin Lizzy and, early Metallica and, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and stuff like that. And then I had another, where I was hearing, Frank Zappa and, Pet Sounds and, all that kind of stuff, Van Morrison and the Beatles and the Who for sure and stuff. And and neither of those two people that were playing me things this is when I'm like 10, really liked the other's musical taste, but I liked it all. So that's where I kind of came from with all of this. So do you bring your cat on tour? No, I wish I could do that. That'd be great. That would be great. What are you doing in Copenhagen? Playing a gig, playing a rock show tomorrow. So if you're around, I'll tell you where we're playing. Let me find the venue. We are playing tomorrow at Amager, A-M-A-G-E-R. Is that right? Amager Bio. Beta. I don't know what that means, but that's the venue. And it's tomorrow night at, let's see what time the show's at. It's probably 7:30. 8 o'clock. Looks like 2 sets, 8 and 9:30. Take a little break so you can go get some delicious beer or whatever, your choice of beverages. So yeah, we do a full 2.5 hours or so of rock music for your listening pleasure. Are you coming to Toronto? Maybe one of these days. I hope. We'll see. And what's happening in Copenhagen? Now, I'm rocking out here tomorrow, and we're kind of all over. Like we're doing a gig in Cologne, and we're doing 2 or 3 in the Netherlands. And check out Classic Rock Show, theclassicrockshow.com for where I'll be over the next week or so. If you're around any of these places and you want to come to a show, come on out. Yeah. Let's see. When recording an amp into a DAW, which do you prefer, fry-up power station or the UA aux? I use the aux for some specific things. Over the years, I've used it for specific things. Like in particular, the AC30 style cabinet that's in it, because I don't know, I just really like to use it with the room mics, because I got into it for when I was trying to kind of like copy like a Brian May kind of thing. And I could get that sound with the room mics and the aux, because it's got the virtual room mics you can blend in. I thought, wow, I can get really close with this. It's pretty cool. If you watch also, sorry, I'm forgetting his first name, but Deraps, you know who I'm talking about? Guy that plays Van Halen really well, from Canada. He did a recent video where he's kind of showing his current rig, and it's just a, sort of straight up Marshall hand wired running into, I think, the hand wired version, running into an aux and using the kind of internal stuff in the aux. It sounds pretty awesome, I thought in the video. And yeah, so he's using that, it's I always tell people just be careful with the load in an aux or whatever, because the loads in those and other certain things are technically not exactly like a speaker curve. So it gets into that whole thing. I don't want to go down that road of that whole argument, but technically I believe in a load should ideally look as close to a speaker curve as possible and not have wider peaks and things like that, where, but I have used my SL68 into an aux, and sounds good, and it was reliable and worked and everything, it seemed okay. But it's generally speaking, if I'm running an SL68 or my old Marshalls and stuff, I'll run them into the sort of reactive load or into the fryette, because the curve looks, a lot like a speaker, like almost identical to what a speaker cabinet looks like. I'm talking about impedance curve here. Layman's terms, the amp thinks it's plugged into a cabinet. You know, with certain loads, it's not exactly like a cabinet, you know, but it still sounds really good. And, you know, so, you know, just always be aware though, when you're turning your amp like on 10 or whatever, you're stressing it. So no matter what the load is, it's just like if you're plugging it into a cabinet and you're running it on 10 for hours on end, you'd be stressing it, right? So, you know, you just always be aware of that. And all that said, the aux sounds really good, and especially for, you know, if you're not nailing the crap out of it all the time, you know, if you're just turning an amp up to 5 or something, I probably wouldn't worry about it at all, you know. Yeah. One thing I would recommend is that if you are running an old Marshall, I do believe in variacing them down to 100 or 90 or whatever, you know, and especially if you're going for the Van Halen thing. But even if you're not, just taking, you know, it's what a brown box does. It takes, because those amps were designed for 110 if you're in the US, or, you know, 220. And if you know, if you're in Europe, I think 220, right? And if you, you know, a little different in England, different, but so layman's terms, but, you know, sometimes if you meter the voltage, like modern voltage and stuff, it's quite high, you know, so just be aware of that. And yeah, you know, taking the amp down a little bit, the voltage, and there's just little things you can do to keep them reliable and stuff when you're using them with load boxes and running them really hard, you know. And one thing you can do is, you know, post phase inverter master volume, and just back it down a little, you know, just take off some of the stress on the output section that's sagging so hard and stuff. So that's another thing you can do. I used to, you know, I generally always run my SL68 on the 90 volt mode, and it would be reliable and I wouldn't have any problems and stuff. I remember I had an old set of Teslas put in it, EL34s, like a nice old set, and, you know, that I bought from like KCA, I think, you know, new old stock Teslas, Quartet, and I had it at 120 and cranked into a load or something, and it, you know, popped the fuse, like HT fuse, and it was like, you know, and I was like, damn it. And then when I'd run it at 90, I'd never have that problem. I could use those tubes. I wouldn't have an issue. I was always a little concerned about it. But everything seemed okay. But it's just the lower voltage just takes the stress off a little bit and stuff. So I don't know. Just my experience was the only time I ever blew an HT fuse in a SL68 was when I was running at 120 into a load. So it's just something to consider, you know, because it's just, they were running on the hairy edge. For tone, I tend to prefer the you know, if we're just talking straight up, like most of the time I'm running into either the surreactive load or I'm running into the Fryette for if I'm running into a cabinet, right? Because it's a loading down and then reamping out through the cab in my other room. That's what you hear me use all the time in videos and stuff. And I think it's very, very transparent. Works great. Do you have much experience with Archtops? I got an Ibanez and found it today when I changed strings that the bridge is floating. Yeah, that's kind of a thing. I learned that one the hard way when I was playing a friend's Gretsch once, and I didn't know anything about that. And probably much like you, you know, I hit the strings a little bit hard and the whole damn bridge moved on the guitar. This was at a gig. Yeah, I was laying into it, you know. I mean, the guitar was fine at rehearsal, and I was like, oh, cool. And then I like nailed the chord, and the whole bridge shifted on the top of the guitar. The guitar was really out of tune all of a sudden. I was like, well, I didn't even know that's a thing. So yeah, if you're playing an Archtop on stage, you're going to want to play something with, especially if you're playing rock and roll, you know, you're going to want to play something with the bridge pinned. It's something like, for instance, like on the Brian Setzer versions of Gretches and stuff, the bridge is pinned, you know, because it's a rock machine, you know. So yeah. Greetings from Azusa from the Dreamer's Life. What's up? How you doing? What's happening in Azusa? Off the side of the 210 freeway in Southern California. Yeah. The voltage in this house is variable, to say the least. I was just monitoring the current in a new little studio and putting it together. Yeah, it can move around, you know. It's a good thing to kind of keep your eye on, you know. Have you ever played a Spawn quick rod? Not really. You know, they had folks that were really into the back in the day. I know Steve Stevens used to use them back before he was using Friedman's and stuff. He had a period where he was playing Splons and stuff, but I never had that much experience with them. there was a few different, what was the other one? David Bray, Splon, some other amps that I just kind of didn't get a lot of chance to play with. Do you think there's a chance you get Stephen Joe to join you on a live chat? Geez, I don't know. That would be pretty cool. I'll find a way to ask. It'd be great to do a Sunday, but I don't want to impose, So maybe I'll find a way once I'm a little more, firmly rooted, let's say. Copenhagen is a great city. I had to fly there to work for work there many years ago. Also took the time to go to Roskilde. Am I saying that right? Roskilde, to see a museum and the Viking ship. Yeah, this is the home of the Vikings. That's for sure. That is the truth. Do you know if John has any plans to release anything similar to the old 3-channel OD100 SE Plus? Possible to find used, best high gain channel switcher ever made. I'll just say, like, in the version of the PT that we've been working on, we've talked about making a wider gain range. More gain and less gain, kind of on the gain sounds, trying to get there, with different settings and stuff. And he really likes that sound too, and he's got customers that really like that sound. I'd like to kind of probably have that sound sometimes too. So, it involves another gain stage beyond what my current version of my amp has. But we've discussed it. So you might see something like that in what we've got coming, maybe not that exact amp, but it should technically be maybe even more versatile than that amplifier. So we'll see. Would you use an amp set up clean, use overdrive to get distortion crunch tone, or do you always set up your tube amp close to breakup and therefore push the amp with OD? Well, I sort of feel much like folks like Tim Pierce and some others that amps sort of sound the best almost when they're pushed into just a bit of drive. And then if you roll your volume down on your guitar to clean up, that's kind of where I always feel like they sound the best. Like, I feel like a lot of young guitar players get all their sound from pedals. Like, they only get the amp up to like 1 on stage if they're using an amp at all, and then they'll play overdrive pedals and things for their sounds. And it's just not really ever my thing. I'm not really a fan of that way of doing things, because I feel like the amp is just kind of lying there and idling almost. You know what I mean? It's like running a car that's got 5 gears in, and you're going like 20 or 25 miles an hour in 3rd gear, and it's just kind of like, and if you push down on the gas, there's nothing there, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like low RPMs, and I feel like that's kind of the effect. There's just no, you know what I mean? And you can take an amp like a Super Reverb or something that sounds amazing clean and run it kind of like I did in the Super Reverb video that I made, where I turn it up to, that doesn't have to be super high, but you turn it up to like 5, or 5.5. And then you roll the volume down on the guitar a little bit and it's clean, it's clean then. But when it's up, or if you hit it with a humbucker, even a PAF, it's breaking up a little bit. And that's just, I just feel like there's a certain amount of compression, and the sound's not square waving at all or getting distorted, but it is overdriving. You're getting some harmonic distortion when you're, and then when you play individual notes or whatever, or do like, it's just got more punch and a little bit of feel to it and stuff. Because without, it's almost like an acoustic guitar or something. If it's just like really turned all the way down and completely clean, you just get that spike, and then the note dies off right away, and there's no sustain, there's no overdrive, it's just all headroom and stuff. I guess I get the sort of John Mayer, like there's some guys out there that seem to like high headroom cleans that have a lot of power and reserve. They tend to use compressors, I think players like that. And a compressor will kind of get you there. Like it'll kind of, if it's a good compressor, or even just a Ross or something, it's like they do a similar thing where they're giving you that sustain and push, but the sound does stay clean, basically clean. So there's that school, those high headroom types, and can't argue with it. They get great guitar sounds. So it's just another way to go at it. But I doubt that they're getting those high headroom sounds without using some kind of, all those players seem to like drives and compressors at the same time, because it just makes the guitar feel good. If it's just skinny clean and loud, and just that's very unpleasant for me to play. So I guess that's all I'm saying, is that it's like I like the amp to do just a bit of work. I love that, the complex sound of like everything doing a little bit of work, like no distortion or drive is all coming from one place. Generally speaking, it's like I've come to realize that I like the sound of, like Yngwie said in his interview with Rick Beato, where he's talking about old plexis, the gain is linear throughout the amplifier. I loved that description of him talking about the preamp, and like getting into the phase inverter tube and the power section. He didn't describe it like that, but he said the gain is linear throughout the amp, the way it's developing its sound, its distortion, whatever it's doing. And I loved that, that's kind of what I've gone to like, is that, and any of you guys that stack pedals sort of do it in a different way, but that's what you're doing. You're stacking to get the little bit of the gain from here, a little bit of the gain from here, a little bit from the amp, and you're getting a similar sort of, just going at it a different way. So anyway, and then, having said all that, I sort of really like most of the tone coming from the amplifier. Like somebody was asking me, what's your overdrive? It's like the amp, generally speaking. If I'm using a PT100, it's that channel 2 Marshall 70s kind of distortion thing is where I live a lot of the time, as my home base sort of sound that I love. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Just got a quad Cortex. Do I need to buy a $200 Mission expression pedal, or will cheaper ones do? You can use other ones, man. I mean, the Mission stuff is nice, but they make good stuff. But I use right now a Source Audio one that works fine. You can get a Boss that, it's certain people like the throw of certain pedals and the way that they operate and stuff. But a Boss, whatever the small version of the FV 500 or whatever, but they make a smaller one. They're quite nice. The chrome one that's sort of small. Your mileage may vary just depending on how you like the feel, but you have to calibrate it once you get it. Make sure you do that so that it knows, where, all the way off is and all the way on is, and then it'll calibrate to, I made the mistake a couple times of, like, for instance, using a different expression pedal that wasn't calibrated with. And, I remember a while ago playing the Like a Stone solo from Audio Slave, and it was going up like 11 semitones instead of 12. That's a problem. That doesn't sound very good. If you end up a half step flat when you're doing those, that's not going to work. But as soon as you calibrate it, then it works. So things you learn. Yeah. Moving down through the chat here. How will you approach playing rhythm guitar with these guys? Do you have a specific way to prepare for a rhythm gig as opposed to the rock and roll shows you've been doing? Oh, well, I mean, it's part of learning things is the intuitive, like listening to things and going, what would be best on this? Like, what should I walk in doing? Like, and that goes for the guitar sound, and that goes for the learning of the parts. And on some songs, it's very obvious, and on others, it's not. And it's never a bad thing to ask questions. If you're like, what would you think about, if I approached this like this and they might go, oh, no, I was more thinking, Chris Cornell is an example as somebody that was very, like, most of the time I knew exactly what to do. It was like, this is the part I should learn. But like one time I learned something and he's like, he'd be very clear about it. He'd almost say things never other than like, be nice and complimentary, like, you sound great tonight, or whatever, a great show, or whatever. But he almost wouldn't comment on specific things, He'd look at you and smile if you were playing something cool or whatever. It wasn't like he was like not observing. But if he wanted something different, he would be like, that thing you're doing, don't play that part. Play the other one. I want you to play the other one. And there was one time, like not that long ago, the last show I ever played with him, where I had learned one part and gone, well, this is the obvious thing to do, and this other thing is auxiliary. And he wanted me to play the other part. So, and he was always very clear about that. So, and then you just have to be willing to adapt and change what you're doing. But yeah, it's on some songs very obvious. I'm discovering as I'm listening to Joe's music, and of course, there's new music coming, so it's like that's being developed. So a lot sort of remains to be seen still. But let's take some Joe, material, for instance, that solo material that are the hits, things that you hear at his shows. If you listen to album versions, many times it's quite clear that there's maybe a hard panned pair of rhythm guitars playing with the lead up the middle, and it's very telling to kind of do things like I've got software like Transcribe that some of I use a lot for learning songs. You can take that and you can just sort of cut the center channel karaoke style, and then just hear what's out in the left and the right sides panned, and it'll be like, oh, okay, that's the obvious things that you should be learning. You know what I mean? And it's very clear, at that point what to learn, and then my head starts to go to like I've done stereo things sometimes where it's like, to widen the guitar sound, and there's different ways to go with that, right? With you can do the H3000 route, you can do different things, but one thing that I've kind of never tried is the split delay thing, like John Petrucci does sometimes. And I discovered how cool that is recently when I did the video for the what's it called, the 2290 pedal from TC, and I got into seeing how some people that were famous for using 2290s, one of them being John Petrucci, how they used it. And I discovered that he did this 7-millisecond thing where he splits the guitar sound, where one side is the dry guitar. I'm talking like the dry guitar is panned 100% to one side. I think that's what he would do. And then the right channel is delayed 7 milliseconds, and there's no repeat or anything like that. It's just a straight up delay that comes up on the other side. Rhythm guitar sound, and it's hard pan stereo, and it sounds like a double track guitar part. And I tried it and I was like, oh man. And I've sort of tried to get there different ways before doing that thing, and I never could. But with the 2290, it was like, that sounds great. Like, it's just really cool. Like, and so there's a part of me that I'm saying that like I might try experimenting with that a little bit with and see what the reaction is, Like, what would you think if it was like this? It was like this hard pan thing, as opposed to a mono guitar in the, what if it's the hard pan split stereo, really tight, but with the double. John went to the TC Mimic pedal to do that after a while. That was a pedal that I never really understood when I tried it at first, but now I think I get it. Maybe I just was doing something wrong with it, the way that I was approaching using it. But anybody remember that pedal, TC Mimic? It was designed to do that. It was designed to do that 2290 split delay thing. So pretty cool. But anyway, like, but you'll hear Joe Satriani songs where, there's, that, split rhythms lead up the middle, what's an example? Surfing with the Alien, something like that. So, there you go. There you have it. Would you actually hear that in the audience? Yeah. Oh yeah. Hard pan stereo. Sure. 100%. You hear it out in the audience. I mean, like if you're in a great PA, the imaging's terrific on modern, if the sound person's great and they've got your guitar hard pan in the PA, and it'll sound markedly different in a line array PA, the imaging's pretty fantastic. So, if your guitar is like, your guitar tone's good and clear and it's in both sides and one side's delayed, I mean, it'll sound fat. I don't know, your mileage may vary, but I think I'd sure hear it. You're talking about like also, like, you know, the Eddie Van Halen thing, let's say if he was using H3000 doing the micro pitch thing, would you hear that in a PA? Yeah, I mean, it's got a big, wide, you know, different venues too, right? It depends. Like if you're playing if you're playing an arena and it's super reverberating all around, maybe stereo is hard to hear, you know, but I'm sure you've sat in the middle at a show at a nice soft seater style theater that's got a great PA and is a fairly dead room and heard some killer imaging going on, you know, if the sound's good. You know, if you've ever heard panning or if you've ever heard, you know, things coming out one side and things coming out another side, you're experiencing it. So, yeah. So what's the correct way to use the mic? Well, I have one around, but I'd have to try it. But I think it was developed to do the split stereo thing. And I just remember not really getting it when I tried it. But when I tried doing this thing with the 2290, where I had, the 2290 allows you to take a mono input and then output stereo, and one side is going to be all the way, you know, left, and the other side's just going to be like so the dry is going to be one side and the wet's going to be all the way the other way, and that's the way it outputs. I did it in the video, by the way, for the 2290. So if you want to hear what I'm talking about, pull it up. It's pretty obvious in the, like, you know, I think you'd even hear it coming out of a laptop or, you know, something, the sound that I'm talking about. So, what software do you recommend for transcribing? It's actually called Transcribe, the one that I use. And it's from a company called Seventh String. I think it's the number 7th string, I think is how it's, could be wrong about that. It might be spelled out seventh, like the words SEVENTH. But Transcribe software, and it's about $50, and it's the phrase trainer that I've used for many years. I really like it. There might be other stuff out there that's even better now, but I've really enjoyed using that over the years. Is it like the Keeley 30 milliseconds got obsessed with that Cooper time QDMS delay sound? Keeley will do a similar thing, I think. Yeah, kind of a double delay. I'm not sure that it outputs the same. I'm not sure about that, if the Keeley is the same or not, like as that split thing. I've just never heard anything that did that tight metal doubled thing like the 2290. When I tried that sound as John did it in the video that I did for it, I was like, oh, there it is. There's the split. It sounds amazing. And it was like almost like you doubled apart and we're playing it back. You know, it really sounded good and it felt good to play. And it was like, anytime I've tried to do stuff like that before, it never quite sounded right. I do a thing sometimes where I have like dry guitar up the middle, and then I have a 35 millisecond delay on one side and a 45 on the other side. You can just blend that in and pull it up. And that is almost more like a really small reverb, like very, like almost like just like a room effect a little bit more. That's a different thing, obviously, because the delay time's longer than 7. So, the only other time that I sort of messed with this was I remember hearing about Alex Lifeson in his in-ears liking when the monitor engineer in his in-ears took his mono guitar sounds and did a similar thing where at the mixing desk he'd split with on one side. So he'd pan Alex's guitar, say in the left ear, bring 7 milliseconds or 11 milliseconds maybe, I seem to remember he was using, up in the right channel to the same volume. And then he had a split, you know, sort of quasi stereo thing going on just in his in-ears, and he liked that. I remember Chris Cornell was having issues on tour when we were out with his acoustic guitar and wanting to, when he'd do his acoustic set, wanting to get a better sound. He just always felt like it sounded very boxy, very mono, very focused up the middle. And I said, I've just heard that Alex does this thing. Maybe we should try it. And we worked with our monitor guy. And he kind of did that for a while. I think he liked it. He tried it and went, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I think he was trying that. So, but I never did it. I just suggested it to him. So I've got to run, you guys, because I've got a dinner reservation in 30. So let me grab this super chat. Thanks for the live stream. I got to get back to work. Me too. Well, I got to get to dinner. But appreciate you guys. Let me see just real quick here where I'm going to be next week on Sunday, so I can see what to expect. So we're playing a gig next week. and we're driving into a day off, that probably means I should be able to do a live stream next week, I would think. After the gig, I'll try and hit at least a half hour or something like that. And do a post gig one next week. So it'll be a later on Sunday live stream. Usual day, usual place, but a little bit later. Let me just see the schedule. We're done by about 10:40 p.m. and then load out and all that stuff. So yeah, it's actually a late show that we do 8:30 to 9:30. The schedule looks a little wacky in here, the time. So I might have to do an earlier Sunday thing. Actually, like maybe I'd do it just right before the show or something, because it says we don't go on until 8:30. That means I could probably start one at 7:30 and be done by like 8:15 and then go on 15 minutes later, if you don't mind watching me warm up. So anyways, I'll try and do something. I'll set up a watch page and stuff for next week and do it on Sunday. But thanks for bearing with me doing this Monday. I'm sure some people maybe won't get to catch it, or they'll watch it after the fact tomorrow or something. All right, I'm going to dinner. Everybody have a great week, and I appreciate you all being here. Thanks so much. Thanks for the great questions. And I'll see you real soon. Hope to see some of you this week too, like maybe in Denmark or in Netherlands or Germany, wherever we are this week on the road. Come up and say hi. We always do a little meet and greet after and stuff. It'd be great to meet some of you if you make it to a show. All right. Take it easy. See ya.